It is 1100 a.m. on a Tuesday in November 1923. You are a student sitting in a cafe in Berlin. You order a cup of coffee. The price on the menu is 5,000 marks. It is expensive, but you have the cash in your pocket. You drink your coffee. You read the newspaper. You listen to the chatter around you. 30 minutes later, you signal the waiter for the bill. He comes over, looks at the chalkboard on the wall, and tells you the price is now 10,000 marks. You laugh. You think he is joking. "But I ordered it 30 minutes ago," you say. The waiter looks at you with dead, tired eyes. He points to the window where a currency exchange shop is changing its numbers. The value of the mark has collapsed by 50% in the time it took you to drink a cup of lukewarm bean water. You check your pockets. You don't have enough. You are technically bankrupt because you didn't drink fast enough. This is not a scene from a dystopian movie. This is a historical document. This is the moment when a civilized, industrial, educated society simply stopped functioning. We grew up hearing the funny stories about the Weimar Republic. We heard about the wheelbarrows full of cash. We heard about children using banknotes as kites. We laughed at the absurdity of it. But for the people living through it, it wasn't funny. It was a psychological apocalypse. It was the moment the middle class realized that the rules of the game, work hard, save money, be a good citizen, were lies. And today, we are going to look at this nightmare not as a history lesson, but as a mirror, because the mathematical forces that destroyed the German mark in 1923 are the exact same forces currently chewing on the edges of the US dollar. Most people think hyperinflation is an event. It isn't, it is a process. And the terrifying truth is that you don't realize you are in the process until the trap has already snapped shut. To understand how a nation commits suicide, we have to go back to the beginning. Back before the chaos. Back to when everything seemed fine. Germany in 1914 was the economic engine of Europe. It had the best technology, the best scientists, and a currency backed by solid gold. It was the America of its day. But then came World War I. Germany financed the war entirely with debt. They didn't raise taxes. They just borrowed, betting that they would win the war and make the losers pay the bill. It was a gamble, and they lost. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles handed Germany a bill for 132 billion gold marks. This was an impossible number. It was 3 times the entire German economy. It was debt that could never be paid. Does that sound familiar? Today, the United States has 34 trillion in debt. The interest payments alone are now higher than the entire defense budget. The US is borrowing money just to pay the interest on the money it already borrowed. The scale is different, but the math is identical. So, what did the German government do? They had a choice. Choice A, default. Tell the world they are broke, accept the humiliation, and crash the economy immediately. Choice B, print the difference. They chose choice B, and at first, it worked. This is the phase of hyperinflation that nobody talks about, the boom. In 1920 and 1921, while the rest of the world was in a recession, Germany was booming. Factories were running 24/7. Unemployment was nearly zero. Foreigners were flocking to Berlin to party. Why? Because the government was pumping so much money into the system that businesses could easily pay off their debts. The stock market soared. If you owned stocks, you felt like a genius. You looked at your portfolio and saw the numbers going up, up, up. But it was a crack, up, boom. You weren't getting richer. The currency was just getting weaker. It is the same sensation as a fever before the sickness kills you. You feel hot, energetic, delirious, but your organs are failing. Then came the tipping point, the psychological break. This is the moment the population realizes the game is rigged. In 1922, prices started rising faster than wages. The average German realized that saving money was a losing strategy. If you kept money in your pocket for a week, it lost 10% of its value. So you learned a new behavior, speed. As soon as you got paid, you ran to the store. You didn't compare prices. You didn't shop around. You just bought something. Anything. A piano, a sack of potatoes, a pair of boots that didn't fit. Because a tangible object, no matter how useless, was better than paper money. This velocity of money is what turns inflation into hyperinflation. It's not just the government printing, it's the people spending. Once the public loses faith, the fire turns into an inferno. By 1923, the inferno was consuming everything. The government had 2,000 printing presses running day and night. They couldn't print the money fast enough to keep up with the prices. They had to outsource the printing to private companies, newspaper publishers, even local councils. Let's look at the life of a typical family. The father gets paid at 1200 p.m. He doesn't go back to work. He hands the stack of cash, literally a brick of paper, to his wife. She runs to the bakery. A loaf of bread was 20,000 marks yesterday. Today it is 50,000. By tomorrow it will be 100,000. If she drops a bundle of cash on the street, she doesn't stop to pick it up. It's not worth the time. But if she drops a potato, she fights for it. Crime exploded. But it wasn't the type of crime you expect. People weren't stealing money. They were stealing things. Farmers had to guard their fields with shotguns because city people would come at night to dig up turnips. Copper pipes were ripped out of buildings. The metal in a coin became worth more than the face value of the coin, so people melted them down. Society de-evolved. The complex web of trust that holds a civilization together dissolved into a primal struggle for calories. And the savers? The elderly? They were wiped out. Imagine a widow who had saved 100,000 marks for her retirement. In 1914, that was a fortune. It could buy a large house. By November 1923, that life savings couldn't buy a newspaper. An entire generation of prudent, responsible people was destitute. They died of starvation in their apartments, surrounded by worthless government bonds. Meanwhile, the speculators got rich. If you had borrowed money to buy a factory, you could pay off your entire debt with the price of a single egg. The Hugo Stinas of the world, the industrial tycoons, bought up the entire country for pennies. This massive transfer of wealth from the middle class to the ultra-rich created a deep, burning anger in the German soul. An anger that demanded a savior. An anger that would eventually open the door for a man named Adolf Hitler. Finally, the government admitted defeat. In November 1923, they introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark. They reset the system. They cut 12 zeros off the currency. 1 trillion old marks became 1 new mark. The nightmare ended as quickly as it began. But the damage was done. The savings were gone forever. The trust was gone forever. Now, look at the United States today. We are told that the dollar is strong. We are told that inflation is transitory or under control. But look at the fundamentals. The U.S. debt to GDP ratio is over 120%, higher than it was during World War II. The Federal Reserve has printed more money in the last 4 years than in the previous 200 years combined. We are seeing the early signs of the crack-up boom. The stock market is at all-time highs. Housing prices are astronomical. The rich are getting richer, while the middle class is finding that their paycheck doesn't cover the grocery bill. We are in the 1921 phase. The fever is starting. The warning from Weimar is clear. Currencies do not die in a straight line. They die in a curve. It starts slowly. Then it accelerates. Then it becomes vertical. And once it goes vertical, there is no way back. You cannot taper a Ponzi scheme. You can only crash it. The people in Berlin in 1923 were just like you. They were educated. They were modern. They trusted their institutions. They didn't believe it could happen to them. Until the day they ordered a coffee, and the price doubled before they could finish it. History is a ledger. And eventually, the ledger balances itself. If you hold your wealth in paper promises from a bankrupt government, you are standing on the train tracks. The train is coming. You can hear the whistle. The only question is, will you get off the tracks in time? If you want to understand the other major threat to your wealth, the secret meeting that created the Federal Reserve and made this entire system possible, you need to watch this video on The Creature from Jekyll Island. It explains who the conductor of this train actually is. Subscribe for the truth.